NFL.com, joining us right now. Does a tremendous job. NFL Insider for Bleacher Report, also for Underdog Fantasy. Local guy who's done well, Mr. James Palmer on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing today, James?
I'm doing great. I'm assuming everybody back home's doing great. It was a fun one last night, man.
It absolutely was. And you don't just cover the Eagles. Obviously, you cover the entire NFL. So before we get to Saquon Barkley, because there's so much good to say about him, let's just look at this football team and the way that they play. What we started to notice as the season's going along is that they just beat on people on both sides. And it's tough, it seems like, for anybody to withstand this for 60 minutes. And you see how fresh Saquon looks late in the game. It's a lot of times it's because that offensive line is beat on the defensive line for 50 minutes, and that last 10, they got nothing left. Are the Eagles as good as we think they are? We're not saying they're automatically better than the Bills, automatically better than the Lions, but I think there's only a small number of teams that are as good as the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think it's 100% accurate. And I think the sample size since the bye week on this 7-game win streak that they've been on, and the bye was just so important. I've talked to enough people in that building to where, you don't want a week 5 bye. It's early. But this team's looking back on it now after 7 straight wins going, thank God we got the bye at week 5 because there were some things we needed to correct. We needed that week. And they fixed some things coaching-wise, how they wanted to use their personnel. You saw the way things have changed, specifically on the defensive side of the ball and some of the changes they made. And, yeah, they're in that group. And it's a small group this year. I mean, there's some good teams in the NFL, but there is a small group at the top. I don't think anybody will argue that this is one of the most talented, if not the most talented rosters in football. There was some curiosity on with 2 new coordinators how it was going to go. And now they've pieced it together, and I think that group is the Lions, the Bills, and the Eagles right now. I think that's it. And I think, to your point, the thing that stands out to me the most is they lead the NFL in rushing offense, and they lead the NFL in total defense. Only 3 other teams have finished a season doing that, and all 3 of them made it to the conference championship game. So, to me, that's showing how you impose your will on teams on both sides of the ball.
Let's talk a little bit about a big piece of the offense. That's Saquon Barkley, 250 yards, 55 yards rushing, and 47 receiving last night. It was extremely impressive. What are your thoughts on a shot at MVP for Saquon?
You know what I think needs to happen, and this is a shame because usually they just find a way to give it to a quarterback. It's become a quarterback award, which is a shame because of the way he's playing. I think his chances of winning it is he has to break one of these records. I mean, he's on pace to break both of them, right? He's on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record for most rushing yards in the season. He's on pace to break Chris Johnson's record for most scrimmage yards in the season. Now, if you do that, I mean, if you set a historical record, I think then it's going to be much more difficult for them to go and hand this thing off to Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson I think Jared Goff actually is in the conversation. If you break one of those records, I think that almost has to happen because quarterbacks are allowed to have much more wow moments, right? But we are seeing them from Saquon. You need those to win MVP. The reverse hurdle jump, that blew up the internet and the world. You need moments like that in numbers and team success. I think he, though, has to win, sadly, break one of those historic records to get the MVP.
Yeah, it's tough for running backs in these streets right now, James. It's tough. You mentioned the defense. I want to ask you about the 2 rookies in the secondary, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. I want to ask you about them, one just on their overall play, but is it surprising that both guys are so good so quickly? Obviously, they were both top 40 picks, but are you surprised with how quickly they become contributing really good football players?
Yeah, I think that's the part. Because what Cooper's playing is a complex position. I mean, he's playing linebacker, he's playing nickel, he's playing in the middle of the field. Now, they thought coming out of the draft in terms of understanding space, football IQ, just feel for the game, those traits, he was the best corner in the draft. But to play that and miss camp the way he did and be able to make an immediate impact is unbelievably impressive. And for Quinyon, I was thinking about this the other day. If you remember, he was playing nickel most of training camp, right? And that was because they wanted their best players in the secondary on the field. So they're like, he's an outside corner, but we want our most talented guys in the field. Let's put him at nickel. And now he's predominantly playing outside on one side. And I'm curious what all that time playing nickel in camp did for him in terms of understanding the entire secondary, right? Understanding the other positions, understanding how it all comes together. And the blend between veterans and rookies in that secondary, I think, shouldn't be overlooked at all. I mean, what Darius Slay has done with these guys as a mentor, and CJ's a part of that, and it's just a great blend of players. And I think the way these two guys are made up, it adds to their success, right? Like if you talk to coaches that work with them on a daily basis, they're texting coaches at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. Hey, I'm watching film right now. What do you think of this? What could I have done better on this play? Like they're constantly in the room. They're constantly working on everything. And they knew last night. I mean, I was talking to guys on the sideline before the game. It was they're going to try to put Cooper DeJean and they're going to try to make his head spin a little bit. This is Sean McVay, right? They're going to try to motion him back and forth and make it really muddy for him at the line of scrimmage, the way they move these receivers around, and try to confuse the rookie. And they didn't. And nobody really has been. And it's been really, really impressive the way both of them are playing. And for nobody to really even target Quignon, which is really, really wild, he's playing at a defensive rookie of the year play right now. It's super impressive.
All right, from one duo to another, Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean have been nothing but excellent this year for the Eagles. What are your thoughts on them and how much they've upgraded in a year?
Yeah, and, we're talking to guys, right, about two positions that we're always going, when is Howie going to draft a corner at the top of the draft? When is Howie going to pay attention to the linebacker spot, right, the middle linebacker spot? It's always been two spots that haven't been very high priorities in the Eagles organization over the years, and now you have players changing the way Vic Fangio runs this defense. I remember getting a text early in the year after Zach Bond kind of broke out one of the early weeks, and they were like, if he can do this, if he can play like this, we can do a lot of different things on defense. And this is going to be really, really something that we weren't expecting. And they both been playing great. They knew Nakobe Dean, people on that staff knew it was just going to kind of take some time. At least that was the opinion of some guys in the building, that they just thought it was eventually going to come together for him. We got to remember, guys, like everybody doesn't come out like gangbusters right out of the gate like we're talking about these two guys in the secondary. It takes a minute for certain players to adjust to the NFL, do some different things. And Nakobe Dean, I think, is one of those guys. And now you're seeing how they can play so much differently. They're able to play the way they're playing as well, because they're playing it behind a defensive line on the interior that's playing really, really well. So when you have the ability to fill some gaps and you have the ability to make plays in space and run because of who's playing in front of you, it's kind of all coming together. And I think the credit should go to Howie allowing Vic Fangio to come to him and say, this is what I need. These are the players that I think we should go after. This is how we should put this together. Everybody kind of listening to each other, and it's falling together. And I think Vic's calling a great game and adjusting in games actually really, really well with these pieces.
We're speaking with NFL insider James Palmer, Underdog Fantasy, also Bleacher Report local guy. I want to ask you now about something. The Eagles don't have to get on a plane the rest of the regular season. You've obviously, as a reporter, had to be on the plane. You've been around teams. You're around the Chiefs a lot, Denver Broncos a lot over the years. Could you explain to the fans that maybe don't understand why that's significant for the next 6 weeks? There'll be just 2 bus trips. The furthest they're going from Philly is Washington, D.C.
It's outstanding. It really is an advantage. It's funny because I'm standing here in Denver, right? Moved here when I left Philly, and they're the only team in that entire time zone right now. Like, the Broncos are the only team in the Mountain Time Zone. Like, that's the way they play their season. Look at Seattle and the number of miles that they usually travel. It's not like getting to the game and, like, your clock and things like this when I talk to players. It's getting back to your facility, right? It's the added hours that you get when the travel back from road games isn't what, flying across the country does to you. You really almost lose the next day. Like Philly, these guys had to get on this flight last night. We're leaving the stadium. I was leaving at like 11 o'clock. They're flying home. Like, what's your Monday after that flight? It's not what a normal Monday will be when you're taking a bus back from Baltimore or a bus from D.C. or, from New York. Like, it's your next Monday is so much more beneficial and so much more can be accomplished in the beginning of the week when you don't have to make those travels.
All right, you look at a big injury last night, Brandon Graham. What is that going to do to the Eagles' defense, especially his leadership?
Yeah, that's the biggest part. I mean, actually, I don't want to overshadow the leadership part by the way, because he's played great. Like, I remember hearing early in the year, it was like, we kind of thought Brandon Graham was going to have this swan song, right? This, like, let's get him in all these stadiums and he'll get a chance to, go out and kind of just wave his hand and have a, goodbye tour. And they're like, he's playing like our best edge rusher. Like, he was playing outstanding. He was playing outstanding last night again. And so they need him because, Bryce Huff goes down as well. That hadn't worked out for a variety of ways so far, the way that they wanted it. They're going to need him to still stay around the team from the leadership standpoint, for sure. This is a young team. Remember, they've lost a lot of leadership in this room this past offseason on both sides of the ball, their veteran presence. So he's going to have to remain around the team. He told us in the locker room, of course, with that big smile he has, and I don't know how he was still smiling to us in the locker room last night with, what he was going through, but he's still going to be around the team. I mean, the importance he has, I think, stands out the most when a newcomer like Saquon is talking to us in the locker room last night going, BG is one of the reasons why I've had this success this quickly. And that's a defensive end, having an impact on your new star running back because of the way he has welcomed him into the locker room, helped him out personally, helped him out as a person. And I think that just extends so much of what Brandon can do. And he's going to do those things. They're just thinner at edge. I mean, it's a little bit more of a different situation. They haven't been able to get a whole lot of edge presence throughout the course of this year. Now, the thing that helps them is, and I mentioned already, the way Jalen Carter and Williams is playing and the way Jordan Davis is playing. If you got really good interior defensive line play, well, it's going to help you guys on the outside, right? Because they're going to make sure they stack the middle, and so that does help the outside, the exterior. But this is actually a really big loss because it's not just it's not just the legend that is Brandon Graham that will never pay for a beer in Philly the rest of his life. He was playing outstanding at 36 years old.
Yeah, he absolutely was. James, we really appreciate it. Before I let you go, though, since you are a Buckeye, I got to ask you, Michigan, this is the year. Is this just a win on Saturday, or do they stop Michigan? And then what do you think happens in the rematch against Oregon?
We got to stop them. I mean, it's been 3 years in a row. I forgot what it was like. We dominated this rivalry so much. And listen, we went out and bought ourselves a hell of a roster.
Yes.
And bought ourselves a hell of a team. But I'm scared because we're playing well and their season hasn't gone well, and this would be the worst thing to happen. But I think we need to go out and beat them by 40. I want to make a statement. It hasn't been fun the last couple of years. And against Oregon, I mean, I really do like for Ohio State's chances, they played at Penn State and won. They went to Oregon and lost because we can't slide down on time apparently.
Just lost by one. Yeah,
exactly. Lost by one because we can't slide in time to kick a field goal. But these are difficult places to play. We've done a good job on the road playing at Oregon already. I think gives us an advantage, and I think we've only gotten better as the year goes on. So it's been really fun to see the way this team's kind of grown and the way the defense has played. So it's. Jeremiah Smith is something special, man. Everybody keep an eye on him. Yep. I know that some coaches at Ohio State actually spent some time during training camp, at Eagles training camp, actually. And they were telling some of the Eagles coaches, this kid in the spring at 17 years old, when it should have been his spring of his senior year of high school, would legitimately made an NFL roster. That's how good this kid is.
Real fast, James. I talked to a personnel guy that said that if he could come out, because it's not a great quarterback year, he'd be the first pick in the draft this year.
I'm not surprised by it at all. I mean, at 17 years old, to be a legitimate NFL player, if you wanted to, is insane. The talent is through the roof. The work ethic's nuts. I mean, it's a rare player that doesn't come around very often. It's been fun to watch. The kid at Alabama is really good too. But
I think there's an argument that the three best wide receivers are all freshmen. But James, we really appreciate it. Have a happy Thanksgiving. We really appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon.
You guys too. Enjoy the holiday.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks so much. That's James Palmer, NFL Insider, Bleacher Report right now, and he's from Upper Marion. So fantastic job from him right there. So